Welcome to Star Trek Selections, The Next Generation. Today I will be discussing my top 5 episodes of Season 3. Number 5, The Vengeance Factor, written by Sam Rolfe and directed by Timothy Bond. The Enterprise is led to Akamar 3, due to finding Akamarian blood at a looted Federation outpost. The Akamarian leader, Sovereign Maruk, points them to a splinter group of Akamarian pirates known as the Gatherers. Soon, Riker meets and takes a shine to the Sovereign's stunning and mysterious chef, Yuta, played by Lisa Wilcox. Picard tries to facilitate a reunification with the Gatherers, but this is complicated by a string of fatal heart attacks. It is soon discovered that Yuta has been genetically altered to live longer, to exact justice for her clan after they were all but wiped out decades earlier. And naturally, it falls to Riker to stop his new love interest from completing her quest by assassinating the leader of the Gatherers, Chorgan. Considered a middling entry by most critic types, I find The Vengeance Factor to be an incredibly well-told and performed piece of Star Trek. It is a very good episode for Frakes as Riker, and Lisa Wilcox's guest star role is excellent. I'm a big fan of hers, and I don't think she ever got the recognition she deserved, or the roles to really show her chops. But she is the shining light of Elm Street 4 and 5, and of The Vengeance Factor, one of my favourite episodes of Next Gen's third season.
I do not feel pleasure or passion. I haven't been able to for a long time.
Number 4, The Offspring, written by Renee Echevarria and directed by Riker himself, Jonathan Frakes, his directorial debut. Data builds himself a child, an android based upon his own construction. He names the android Lal, meaning beloved. He decides to let his child choose their own appearance and gender, and Lal chooses to be a human female, played by Hallie Todd. After some initial and amusing hiccups, with Lal navigating her world much like any child, with the exception of one hilarious scene where Riker, as he does, unknowingly makes a move on her. However, soon a Starfleet Admiral, Haftel, turns up and insists that Lal be handed over to Starfleet. Ugh, those damn admirals, always sticking their noses in and causing trouble. It is at this point Lal begins to experience actual emotions, and also starts to shut down. And Data attempts to save her, to no avail. The Offspring is an exemplary debut for Frakes as director. It is little wonder that he would go on to direct many episodes of television, including quite a few of Star Trek's bests over the decades, and several movies, including, for my money, the absolute greatest Star Trek film. We'll get to that in the 90s on A Century of Cinema. And the performances of Brent Spiner and Hallie Todd create more beauty and poignancy than a couple of androids have any right to. Spiner again eliciting torrents of emotion while showing none, and Todd masterfully conveying the complexities of knowing love and fear for the very first time. And their final scene together is one of the most affecting in Star Trek's long history.
I love you, Father.
I wish I could feel it with you.
I will feel it for both of us.
Number 3, Who Watches the Watchers, directed by Robert Weimer and written by Hans Beimler and Richard Manning. The Enterprise heads to Mintaka 3, where a group of scientists are observing the inhabitants, a primitive culture described as Proto-Vulcan. They are in the early stages of abandoning their more superstitious beliefs in favour of rational, reasoned thinking. When an accident causes the scientists to be seen by a couple of inhabitants, Oji and Liko, Pamela Adlon, credited here as Pamela Siegel, and Ray Wise. Liko is injured in a fall and is taken aboard the Enterprise to be treated. Unbeknownst to the crew, Liko wakes for a time and witnesses the, to him, miraculous sights of this futuristic vessel. And when he is returned to his people, asserts that he has seen the afterlife and the all-powerful overseer, the Picard. The Mintakans have captured a Federation scientist, and Riker and Troy must beam down in disguise to rescue them. Riker succeeds, but Troy is stuck on the planet. Picard's only choice then is to covertly beam the Mintakan leader Nuria up to the ship, and show her that he is not a god, but merely a man from a more advanced species. She is not entirely convinced until witnessing the death of one of the scientists. Just as Liko is ready to kill Troy in order to do what will please the Overseer, Picard and Nuria beam down, to convince him to relent. Possibly the most overt anti-religious zealotry story in all of Star Trek. Who Watches the Watchers is expertly written and a steadfast champion of reason. Ray Wise does a great job as the unwavering zealot Liko, and Patrick Stewart is at his best delivering another in a string of nuanced, intelligent Captain Picard lessons in reasoned morality.
Millennia ago, they abandoned their belief in the supernatural. Now you are asking me to sabotage that achievement, to send them back into the dark ages of superstition and ignorance and fear? No!
Regularly on lists of TNG's greatest episodes, it sits comfortably as one of my favourites of one of, if not the, best season of the show. Number 2, The Best of Both Worlds, directed by Cliff Bowl and written by Michael Piller. Star Trek The Next Generation gives us its first two-parter, and boy do they show 'em how it's done. I had a dilemma about what to do with the season break two-parters, but I just decided to include both parts in the season where they started. So that's what I'll be doing going forward. The Borg are back, and Admiral Hansen, though one of the more affable Starfleet admirals, nonetheless sticks his nose in by assigning Lieutenant Commander Shelby Elizabeth Dennehy, an apparent expert on the Borg, to the Enterprise, and she has designs on Riker's job, since he has been offered a captaincy for the third time. But he's happier than he's ever been right where he is. Anyway, the inevitable Borg confrontation happens, and things don't look great, with the Enterprise barely escaping. However, they learn some helpful tactical things and feel better prepared for the next encounter, which actually goes even worse. Picard is abducted and assimilated.
I am Locutus of Borg. Resistance is futile. Your life, as it has been, is over. From this time forward, you will service us.
Riker, to his credit, doesn't hesitate in executing the plan to fire a huge deflector blast at the Borg. To be continued. We had to wait months for the conclusion when this first aired. It was quite cruel. So on to part 2. The deflector thing didn't work because Picard knew that plan, so the Borg do too. The Borg head toward Earth and Riker gets a field commission as captain, and he promotes Shelby to first officer. Starfleet engage the Borg at the Wolf 359 system and are decimated. So it is up to the Enterprise, and now Captain Riker, to save the world. They come up with a plan involving separating the saucer section and sneaking Worf and Data onto the cube via a shuttle to take back Picard. Data then connects to the machine part of the captain, and the last vestige of humanity in him is able to tell Data how to destroy the Borg. The Best of Both Worlds is an action-packed yet thoughtful season ender and opener, worthy of being released on the big screen. And it is probably the best Riker-led story. On first watch, you kind of forget about how much this story is about Will Riker, because we've got Borg, Picard assimilated, Earth in peril, apocalyptic stuff going on here, there, and everywhere. But when you really get down to it, this is an important character-defining journey for Riker, with excellent support from Brent Spiner and Patrick Stewart. This event will impact the character of Picard immensely going forward. It is Star Trek, sci-fi, and television in general at its best, and in pretty much any other season it would take the cake. But this is Season 3 of Star Trek The Next Generation. So, number 1, Yesterday's Enterprise, directed by David Carson and written by Ira Stephen Bear, Richard Manning, Hans Beimler, and Ronald D. Moore, from a story by Trent Christopher Ganino and Eric A. Stilwell. A rare case of too many cooks absolutely nailing the broth. A ship emerges from a temporal rift, instantaneously altering the last 20 years of history. The ship is the Enterprise C, which got caught up in a temporal rift while battling some Romulans who were attacking a Klingon outpost. Only Guinan senses a change in the timeline, notably by the presence of Denise Crosby returning as Tasha Yar. This timeline sees the Federation engaged in a long and bloody war with the Klingons, and Picard soon realizes that if the Enterprise C had stayed in its own time and been lost defending the Klingons, it could have averted the war. Captain Rachel Garrett, initially and understandably loath to go back to an unwinnable battle, soon sees the bigger picture and agrees to take the ship back. Meanwhile, Tasha is striking up a bit of a romance with Enterprise C officer Richard Castillo, Christopher McDonald in a rare likeable role. When Captain Garrett is killed in a Klingon attack, Castillo agrees to lead the ship back through the rift. Tasha, noticing Guinan's reaction to her, asks her what it is about her that Guinan finds so unsettling.
We've known each other too long.
We weren't meant to know each other at all. At least that's what I sense when I look at you. Tasha, you're not supposed to be here.
Where am I supposed to be?
Dead.
After this revelation, Tasha asks Picard for permission to join the Enterprise C. Yesterday's Enterprise is actually my favourite episode of The Next Generation. It is one of the most elegant science fiction stories ever told, with an incredible premise and brilliant dialogue. It is helmed expertly by David Carson, and is also some of DP Marvin V. Rush's best work, with some beautifully composed shots. Not only that, it gives Denise Crosby and Tasha Yar the heroic send-off she deserved. And she steps up to the level of the work. Along with the rest of the cast, particularly Patrick Stewart, who is convincing as hell, playing the wartime Captain Picard, just differently enough from the Picard we know. And I think this is Whoopi Goldberg's best Guinan performance. It is the most unsettled we ever see her, and she's thoroughly great to watch. And as a nice little extra, we get to see when Worf discovered he liked prune juice, a warrior's drink. Yesterday's Enterprise is Star Trek at its finest, and easily my favourite episode of the season. Join me next time on Star Trek Selections, when I will be looking at Season 4 of The Next Generation.
Let's make sure that history never forgets the name Enterprise.